Be honest, what's one task that you keep pushing to the bottom of your to-do list? The admin, the proposals, the blog post that you meant to write last month? Or what if AI could do it for you in your tone of voice in a fraction of the time? In this episode, we're exploring how to teach AI to do your least favourite tasks. You'll learn how to spot the tasks AI can do better than you, a simple framework to decide what to automate and what to keep human, plus how to train AI to sound like you, not like a robot. And stick around to the end to learn how our guest built an entire workshop using AI, slides, notes, handouts, everything in just a few hours. Welcome to Architecture Business Club, the show that helps you build a better business in architecture so you can enjoy more freedom, flexibility and fulfillment. I'm your host, Jon Clayton, and if you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss another episode. We're joined by Bryon McCartney, the CEO of ArcMark, a leading business coaching, branding and marketing firm working exclusively with architecture firms. He has founded and led 6 creative service firms since 2002 and has helped more than 5,000 architects transform their practices. To connect with Bryon on LinkedIn, click the link in the show notes. We're going to talk about how to teach AI to do your least favorite tasks so you have more time to do more of what you love. And wouldn't we all like to do more of what we love in our week? For sure. So I think,
for sure.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be really interested in this one. Bryon, you've said before that AI, you don't think it's going to replace architects, but it will make the firms that use it far more competitive. Can you explain what you mean by that? Why you believe that to be the case?
From just a practical standpoint, if you can use a tool like AI to do a lot of the, what I call the busy work, the routine things, the things that don't excite you, and the things that are typically those tasks that are kind of in the the things that you have to do to get to the things you really want to do. I think there's a huge amount of value in that, not just in terms of productivity, but in terms of enjoying your work, right? I'm focused so much more now. I'm with AI, I'm able to automate things that I never liked doing in the first place. And so now it just gives me a lot more time to think about strategy or think about innovation and creativity. I think as a designer, I went to graphic design school. I'm not an architect, but I went to school to be creative. I wanted to learn to be a creative, and that's what I focus on. My creativity these days isn't as focused as it used to be on design, but now it's more on how can we be more creative in our business? How can we find new ways of thinking and using tools? I think I shared this with you before. I am a early adopter of a lot of tools. Most people who know me will probably agree that I have a tool for everything. If somebody asks like, hey, how do you do this? I'm like, there's a tool for that. I've always been looking for ways to do things better, faster, easier, cheaper. And I think AI, of all the tools I've ever used, is probably one of the most impactful tools that I've ever been able to utilize. I mean, it reminds me of when I started my career around the time that the Macs came out and desktop publishing started flourishing. We had, previous to that, we were cutting paper and film and using markers and brushes, and then along comes this device that can produce artwork. I think we're at that kind of inflection point again with AI. So yeah, I believe that AI isn't necessarily going to replace designers. Maybe someday, I don't want to say never, but for the moment, I see that as farther off. And I think where architects and other creatives should be obsessing right now is, how do I use these tools so that I can make more time for my creativity, for my design work, or whatever it is you want to focus on.
Yeah, I love that. That's sort of part reassuring and also part exciting as well. That actually at the moment, this is a really exciting time to be alive, it's such a unique time. And absolutely, this is something we should be learning about and exploring more. You talk about identifying some of the biggest time wasters. So some of those tasks, that the stuff that kind of drains your week, the things that you don't enjoy working on. What do you think are some of the most common tasks that architects, what are some of the things that they've told you they'd like to hand over to AI?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that that we see as obvious opportunities are, and I know a lot of architects are already doing this, but meeting notes is one thing. I see a lot of people using meeting recorders. What I don't see is a lot of them taking that and then taking it to the next step. Now, when in our system, when we have a meeting, it's recorded, a transcript is created like most meeting recorders, and a summary is produced like most meeting recorders. But in our system, we can then take that, and that will create tasks in our project management system. So that AI will look at that transcript and say, oh, here was some deadlines that they talked about. Here were some tasks that they talked about, and it will organize that into ClickUp, our project management system. And then, we have to go in and verify those, but that cuts out a huge step of somebody having to sit there and type that out. Another place that I see is with email responses, right? A lot of us are writing our emails from scratch every time. Yeah. I mean, I got in the habit years ago of saving some templates that I reuse over and over again. Like when people ask me for references, or when people ask me, do you have a list of websites that you've designed that I can look at? Yeah, I do. It's a template, and I just call it up and I personalize it. Well, that now I can have AI actually find that email that's requesting those references. It will, personalize that email and send that response for me without me having to do anything.
That's so cool.
So that's a huge time saver for me. And I'm sure it would be for a lot of architects too, because our architects get contacted all the time. Hey, can you show me some of your projects? Can you show me some, do you have references or people that you've worked with? These things are those are the things that you get them regularly, but not so often where it's oh yeah, I'm just grab this and send this. So having AI to be able to do stuff like that, or, RFIs even, there's so many repeatable tasks that I think architects just do every day that, if you really sat down and just took an inventory, for maybe a couple of weeks and started listing out these things, I think we'll talk about the framework as well. But, really understanding where your time is going is so important. And as these tools become more used, your competitors are going to be using them too. So the sooner you get ahead of this and sooner you start adopting these things, the better off you're going to be. That's what it's going to come down to, is that it won't be the AI that replaces you. It'll be the people using it. So
yeah. I think for the vast majority of architects and service-based business owners generally, I guess that there's a huge proportion of their time each week that it's not spent doing what's traditionally thought of as the work, like the kind of thing that they were originally trained to do, and that they did maybe when they worked for another practice, like designing buildings. there's a huge proportion of time, particularly for the sole practitioners, where they're doing all this other stuff. You say, like, there's all this admin and emails, and a lot of it is repeating processes. So there is
even there's things like research, like, oh, I need to do code research, or I need to review the code, right? You can upload that code into a tool like Notebook LM, which doesn't, search the web. It only works with the information you give it. You can cut that time down to nothing. It's simple. It's a simple request in chat to get the information you need. I think there's just ways of thinking beyond, and I think too, it's, what I see is a lot of people getting stuck with Chat GPT, like thinking that's the end all be all. It's not. There's so many other tools that you can employ that are many times free, or just better tools. To be honest.
For sure. I think ChatGPT is probably the one that most people have heard of, and it's a good kind of like generalist AI to maybe test out and try. But as you say, there's far better tools for specific tasks. Absolutely, for sure. You've developed a framework. Let's have a chat about that. This is called the Teach framework, and this is to help people figure out what to automate. Could you briefly break that down for us and just sort of walk us through each of those steps in that framework?
I did a workshop for CRAN, which is the Custom Residential Architects Network from the AIA here in the U.S. So they had their national symposium in Virginia. I guess it was about a month ago, and I led a workshop on how to teach AI to do the least favorite task. That was the exact name of it. And so so there was a framework that I introduced there that we've kind of moved forward a little bit, and the framework is called Teach, and it stands for task clarity. So first you have to understand, like, hey, can I describe exactly what done looks like for this task, right? What's the end goal of it? Then you have, so then the next checkbox is expertise required. So does it truly need my unique skills or expertise? If the answer is no, it might be a good candidate for AI. Then you have articulation. Can you explain the steps or the rules or the process for the task in about 10 minutes, right? We don't want to, if it's going to take more than 10 minutes, probably too complicated, right? Consistency. Does it follow a clear, repeatable pattern or process, right? Is it repeatable? If it's something where you're constantly having to make judgments and, different decision-making, it's probably going to be too complicated. And then high frequency. Is it something you do weekly or even more often than that? If it is, it's probably, if it meets all those criteria, then it's probably a good task to think about automating or using AI to help you with, for sure.
That's really helpful, and makes it really simple then, that if we do a task audit, we have a task that we have to do in front of us on our to-do list, we can use that framework to figure out very quickly, we can figure out, is it worth me using AI for this? Is it going to save me time if I use AI? Because if it doesn't meet all those criteria, like if it takes so long to explain to the AI what to do, or if it's something that you also mentioned about being high frequency. So if it's not something that actually, once you've put the effort in to create the prompt and instructions for the AI, if you're hardly ever going to use it, it's not really going to save you much time.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So really, really important, and really simple framework that people can use there. So that's really good. You mentioned about your workshop. Now, in your workshop, you talked about the idea of treating AI a little bit like a summer intern. So it's not like a sort of magic bullet or magic solution. Can you explain a little bit more about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the reason I like this analogy and comparison is because I find that a lot of people, when they use AI, they are going into it like they have this expectation like it's going to just magically solve everything for them, and it's like, poof, it's like, their wish is come true, like it's a genie in a bottle. It isn't. It is a tool. And when you think of it like an intern, imagine you just hired an intern and you brought them in your office and you're like, hey, I need to give you some work, right? What are you going to do? Are you just going to say, here, do this? No, you're not. You're going to say, okay, here's what I need you to do. I'm going to give you a set of instructions on how to do this. You're going to go away. You're going to do it. I'll probably give you some additional information, maybe some background information, things like that. Explain, what we call the context. And then what we need to do, you need to go attempt to do this task. Then you're going to come back. I'm going to give you some feedback. I'm going to tell you what you did right, what you did wrong. And then you're going to go back, do it again. And you're probably going to still have some mistakes, but we're going to go back and forth. We're going to iterate through this. And that's how we need to look at AI. It's not this magic bullet. It's not something that's just going to solve all your problems in one prompt. I think I see a lot of people get frustrated with AI because they tell me, oh, well, I tried using AI to do X, Y, Z, right? And I'm like, okay, great. So what did you do? Well, I asked it to do that. Okay. Did you give it did you explain what you wanted it to do? Did you explain like what role it's supposed to take on, or did you give it any background? Oh, no, I didn't do that. Okay, well, that's why you're frustrated, because you didn't take the time to actually give it the information that it needed. It doesn't have all your context, all your experience, all your knowledge. And I think the other point about this too is that what I see a lot of people trying to do is to use AI for things that they don't know how to do themselves.
Yeah.
How are you going to explain it if you don't know how to do it, right?
How do you know what good looks like with the output you get back if you don't understand what you're reading or receiving?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not going to solve nuclear fusion using AI. I'm just, if you're not a nuclear scientist, I'm sorry, it's just not going to work. So,
that's so true.
Yeah, I just think I think, and I also think slowing down, right? just being a little bit more accepting of the fact that there's a back and forth between you and the tool. I know that it talks, it sounds like it's almost human, and but it's just a language model. It's not. It's predicting things. That's how it works. Sometimes you just have to slow down and look at your own thought process behind it too, right? It's one of those things. I have fallen into this trap myself where I'm like, why isn't it doing what I want it to do? And often I realize it's because, well, I didn't do the things that I was supposed to do.
Yeah,
right?
You didn't
garbage out.
Yeah, well, that's it. You can then look back at your original prompt and go, okay, I didn't say specifically to do it this way, or I didn't say not to do it that way. I think there's a lot of parallels with using AI and outsourcing as well. If you think about where architecture firms might outsource some of their work, and I think if you've not done outsourcing before, there is this expectation that you're just going to send it off to somebody. Here you go. There's some drawings. This is the building. Like, just do all of the detailing for us. Just like draw all this stuff. And there's an expectation that it's going to come back often and it's going to be like perfect or near perfect. And often it isn't. And it's like, well, how solid was the brief? Like, if you're not giving a really robust set of instructions and a really solid brief for exactly the context of the projects, like the expectations, the deliverables, guidance on the CAD or BIM protocols that the person should be using, you are not going to get it back looking like what you want. And remember when I worked in architecture practices and it wasn't outsourcing, but delegating. So delegating a task to a colleague or a junior in the office, that the instructions needed to be crystal clear, because otherwise what happened, you come back with the drawings and you'd be like, oh, they've not done this, they've not done that. Why have they done that way? And then I'll look at my instructions and think, hang on, it's my fault.
Now, there's another side to that, right? With AI, is that if you give it too much information, it's also maybe not going to perform as well. So we got to find a balance in there. What I like to kind of, it would be the same with an intern or delegating something to an employee. Instruct on the result that you want rather than the method that you want it done. Right? Look for giving the advice instructions on what the expectations are and what the parameters are for the end result, rather than, do this step, do this, because a lot of times you'll find it finds a different way to think about things, and you end up with much better results if you don't dictate all of the steps in between.
Yeah, that's a great tip. You also have a simple 5-step formula that we can use for writing a really great AI prompt. Can you run us through that and share how that works?
Yeah, it's really simple. I mean, and it's not anything that I created. It's something I've just learned over the time. First, you have to define a clear role. So what role is the AI going to perform? Next, you have to be clear about the task that you want it to do. What's the task that you're asking it to do? What's the expectation that you have? Next is the context. What information will it need to complete that task? So if there's additional background information, or maybe a specific document that it needs to reference, you need to provide that. You then need to kind of help it understand what structure you want for the output. So is this going to be formatted text in Markdown? Is it going to be code? What are your expectations there? And then finally, you want to give it some what I call like the things to avoid, or the things that you don't, like the mistakes that you don't want it to make. And so helping it understand, like, just, I think we said it at the beginning, or you said it at the beginning. What does done look like? What's going to make you happy as an end result?
Yeah. Could we maybe try together and do like a little worked example of that? I'm trying to think of a simple idea that we could share here. For, let's say there's an architect, maybe let's say it's a residential architect, and the task is to do something, let's say something fairly simple, like write a blog post, or I don't know, like a LinkedIn post or something like that would appeal to its customers. How would we then use that formula that you've provided to instruct the AI? If we were going to say use something like, let's say ChatGPT.
Let's say it's for a blog post. You're an expert content creator for architecture firms, that helping them write blogs, right? So you might want to define something like that as the role. The task is, you're going to help us write an article about choosing an architect in our local area, right? So let's say Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah. How to choose an architect in Cleveland, Ohio. The context, you'll probably want to give it some background about yourself. Maybe in this particular case, what I would recommend is that you ask the AI to come up with a series of questions about this topic. Then you answer those, let's say in a recording or whatever, have that transcribed. That would be the context. So you're actually giving it your expertise on this topic as well. That's, by the way, how we do our articles for our clients. So then you want to give it structure. So you want to define, like, how many words the article should be. Should it be SEO optimized? Should it be formatted with headers and subheads and bolded text for emphasis? I'd probably also want to have some bulleted lists and a call to action at the end, like, hey, go to our website and get a free consultation, or in most cases apply for a free consultation. Finally, you would want to have some don'ts, right? So in this case, for a blog article, I'd probably say don't use obvious AI response, kind of formatting of text. Don't use words like ensure and delve and
dive deep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or in XYZ world, that's my biggest pet peeve. It's like today's busy architecture world. It's like who's saying that? And avoid things like M dashes, all over the place, that kind of thing. So yeah, that would be the kind of the skeleton of the prompt. You'd probably want to refine that for your own needs, but yeah.
No, that's great. It's a really good example. Thanks for that, Bryon. Really good. Sure. So you mentioned earlier about how AI has helped significantly increase the profitability of your own agency in the past year. I'd love to hear about that and about what's kind of changed day to day in the business and how this has happened.
So I've been talking about AI within our firm, I think since 2021. Just a side note, Jon, my first experience with AI was back in 1998. So I actually I was part of a marketing campaign for an advertising campaign for Calvin Klein, where we used AI, an AI system from MIT, to create a storyline. Now, back then it was probably called machine learning or something. It wasn't real AI like we have today, but it was pretty cool. But when AI came on the scene, prior to ChatGPT, we had a tool called Conversion AI, and it was one of the first AI tools that came out. And I jumped on it. I bought a lifetime, deal with that, and I started using it right away to write articles and things like that. And so I've been promoting AI within our team for almost 4 years now. And last year, we've been using AI to write articles for the last couple of years. But last year I told my team, I said, hey, I want everybody to, start thinking about how we can use AI more deeply in our day-to-day business. What other tasks can we use AI for? In my own case, just to give you some examples of how I'm using it, it used to be that when we onboarded a client, we would go through a pretty intense process. Like it was exhausting for me, because I'd be spending like 3 weeks, going through like transcripts from all these calls and trying to synthesize a lot of information all at once into like some sort of report, right? Now what I do is I record those calls. I'm very engaged on the calls. I ask better questions on the calls because I'm not writing notes. I'm actually talking and having conversations like we are right now. But when those calls are transcribed, what we do is we take those, and then I have projects that I've created that basically know what I want to do with those particular transcripts, and it will synthesize that information, draw out the information I need, and it will create basically an outline of what we call that we go through 2 major workshops in our onboarding. One is called our brand build, and the other is called our clear story. Brand build is about understanding the firm. Clear story is about understanding their ideal client. And so I'll use these projects to basically take the information I've gathered from the client and now that project will then synthesize that for me, and it'll extract all their great answers and create an outline for me. And then what I do is I take those outlines and I use a tool called Gamma. Gamma is a AI powered presentation tool, and I will basically copy that outline into Gamma, and it will create the presentation for me. And so what used to take me 3 weeks now takes me about 4 hours. So it's very, and sometimes I'm getting quicker at it. So I'm getting that time down quite there's a lot of, I got to read it all and whatever. So that's probably there's always going to be a review stage, but just to be able to do all of that in that amount of time, it's so much more efficient. And quite honestly, it's better because a lot of times the language model will pick up on things that I might miss, or I might go through a transcript and just like, I'm only human, right? So it might be something subtle that it picks up on that ends up being really helpful later on. And so once we have those documents, then we can create any kind of content for that client. That's the basis of their messaging. So websites, taglines, anything we want can now be created. Social media, blog posts, all that stuff. So it's a huge time saver. And yeah, it's enabled us to increase our profitability from, we were at 21% a year ago. We're at 50% right now.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. I'm really happy about it.
I bet. Absolutely. Yeah. I'd be happy too.
Yeah.
As an aside, I do use some AI tools in the production of this podcast.
Use Descript, I think, right?
Yeah, so we use Descript for editing, and there's a variety of kind of AI tools that are built into that. And also in sort of other parts of the process, I'll use ChatGPT as well. I have used, what else have I used? Claude. Use Claude as well.
I highly recommend Claude, yes.
Yeah, seems to be better for more creative writing stuff. The output seems to be.
It's better for a lot of things, to be honest. I have used it to write code. I've used it to, I write all of my articles now using Claude. Yeah. It's amazing. I mentioned this before we started chatting. I've actually built an AI advisory board for my business, and that's powered by Claude. So it's a project where I have custom instructions for all the roles that I want my board to fulfill. And so like I have a marketing strategy director. I have a architect client advisor. There's several. I think there's like 10 roles that are on my board. And so whenever I have a question about my business, like, or an idea, hey, what if we tried this? Or what if we wanted to launch a new course or something like that? I can go in and ask my board, and I can basically dialogue with it and have a conversation with it, and it will give me advice. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend anybody that wants, that runs a business, you should have an AI advisory.
I love that. That is definitely going on my to-do list.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea.
And I had AI help me build it. I was like, I don't know. I don't even know what roles I want on it, So I went into Claude and I said, hey, I want to create an AI advisory board. And it was like, oh, great. And it gave me a whole list of, possible roles. And then I was going through them and I was like, well, wait a minute, I don't think I need this one, but it gave me other ideas. I started thinking about it and I was like, oh, wait a minute, there's a couple missing here. And I said, and it was like, oh, those are great. So it's like, so we ended up settling in on a few different roles. And then what I did was I said, okay, this is great. Here's my list of the roles that I want on this board. Now I want you to create custom instructions for a Claude project that will be able to power this board. And it did. He gave me the custom instructions, and then I just created a new project and put that in there. And now I'm putting other things in there, like more information about our business. And
that's so cool.
Really,
such a great idea.
Cool. Yeah.
For someone that's listening though, or watching this, because hopefully by the point this one goes out, I will have actually sorted out our YouTube channel and actually start posting these on YouTube as well. That's a conversation for later, I guess. But for anyone that's listening to us today, that's feeling perhaps a bit overwhelmed, a bit skeptical about AI, maybe they've tried ChatGPT. Yeah, can't even say it. Maybe they've tried ChatGPT once or twice and they didn't really get great results from it. Where should they start? What would your recommendations be for them?
I think that anybody who is curious about this stuff, you need to start small, right? Start and where I often recommend people start is with the tasks that they know how to do really well, the tasks that you can describe really well, the tasks that you know what done looks like, that you have a clear process for, that you have, all the things that we talked about with Teach. If a task kind of fits within those parameters, you can clarify the role. You can clarify, what the task is. You have context that you can give the AI structure. You can tell it what mistakes to avoid, and if it fits within that Teach framework of, just being clear, not requiring your unique expertise necessarily, being easy to explain, have a consistent or repeatable pattern, something you do often. These are the best tasks to start with, right? And you don't have to, there's a lot of stuff out there in YouTube about how you can, hook up all these different tools and automate everything. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is be able to use AI effectively at the start. Like, you need to gain confidence. And so if you start with things you really know well and gain that confidence, you're going to get more curious about it. You're going to want to know, like, okay, well, I can do this now. Maybe I can do this. It just, allow yourself the time and the grace to make mistakes and, screw up sometimes, and realize you're not going to get results 100% all the time that you like. What you're really aiming for is something that's in that 80 to 90% range, right? If you can get AI to give you 80 to 90% of what you want, and then build on that consistently over time, make it a routine, develop a habit, then you're gonna feel a lot more confident, a lot more comfortable using AI on a regular basis, and you're gonna eventually see results. I mean, we've been able to increase our profitability, but it took us a while to get there. It didn't happen like, oh, we discovered AI, now we're 174% more profitable. We've been using AI for years now, and this is something that developed over time. So don't go into it with, oh my God, this is going to change my life. Go into it with, how can I use this effectively in one task? Master that, move on to another one. Build incrementally, and that's how you're going to find success.
Yeah. So don't feel any pressure to think like, oh my goodness, I need to completely reinvent everything in my business. It's all got to be AI'd overnight. You don't have to do that. You said start small, pick one task and just build your confidence and then iterate and improve as you go. I think that's really sensible advice for everybody.
The other thing I would also say is that if you're using the free version of any tool, really consider upgrading to at least the first level of paid, right? Because especially for a business, when you for example, with ChatGPT, if you're using ChatGPT on a Teams account, they will not use your information for training. Okay, at least that's what they say. But you have the expectation of privacy. Same thing with like, if you have Google, if you have a Google Workspace account, you have access to Gemini. Gemini is amazing. It's a great tool. It's not as much talked about as some of the other tools, but you have Gemini in Workspace. You have Notebook LM. You have the paid version of Notebook LM if you have a Workspace account, which is Notebook LM. We have not talked about it much, but it is an amazing tool. It is just there's so much you can do with that. If you want to learn a topic, or if you're studying for an exam, go just use LM. You'll be amazed what you can do. But yeah, I mean, you'll find that you have more capabilities with the paid versions of the tools than you will with the free version.
Yeah,
and for $20 a month, I mean, here in Cleveland, that's like a couple of cocktails on the weekend, or that's maybe like 4 Starbucks this week, or something. It's not that bad. You can afford $20.
That's great. It's a great tip. So you used AI, you've used AI to build out the workshop you talked about recently, which was what we've based this conversation on today, is based around the content from that recent workshop. Now, that was about AI, but you practiced what you preach. Like, you used AI to build out that workshop. That was slides, worksheets, even like, help with the speaker notes. Could you tell us about how you pulled that off?
I had this idea about this workshop. I was approached by Marika McKeel. She's an architect in New York. She's the chair of CRAN this year. And so she approached me at AIA National, and she says, "Hey, I want you to do a workshop at CRAN about AI." She had been to a presentation I did a year ago at Mark LePage's event in Nashville, and so we had done a workshop on how to use ChatGPTs, and so or custom GPTs, excuse me. And so she was like, "I want you to do a workshop on AI, but it needs to be like really simple." She's like, most of the people in CRAN are not like technically sophisticated. I was like, that's kind of how she put it. I was like, okay. I was like, so we just need something that everybody can kind of follow along and do. And so I recorded our call. Okay. Well, actually we met in person. I asked her, "Do you mind if I record our session here?" And she's like, "Sure." And so we were brainstorming. We had, there were some ideas that I came up with on the spot, and there were some things that she kind of wanted me to be aware of. I took that recording and immediately put it into Claude. And I said, I want you to review this discussion and help me come up with a concept for this workshop. And it did. It gave me an outline. I went back and forth with it. We iterated, developed the outline, got the outline to where I wanted it, sent it to Marika. She wrote me back. She's like, "This looks amazing." I was like, "Great, that's cool." So then I took the outline and brought it back into Claude. I said, "Okay, now I want to create a slide presentation. And I want to think about exercises. I want to think about worksheets. I want to think about, what are some examples that we can showcase, et cetera." Right. And so iterated with AI to develop that presentation outline, basically the presentation content. Once we got all of that figured out and I was happy with it, then I took that document, brought it into Gamma, which I mentioned earlier. Gamma is a AI-powered presentation tool. It blows away anything I've seen in it. In terms of like ease of use, so much easier than PowerPoint or Google Slides, and it basically designs your presentation. Like I now have a theme that I've designed in Gamma. So it has our fonts, it has our styles and colors, it has our logo, And so I put this text outline into Gamma, and I said, I want you to create this presentation. It did. Granted, there was a lot of editing I had to do, but I would estimate that process alone normally would have taken me probably a week and a half of, if I were just trying to create all those slides from scratch and, write everything. Once I had the presentation where I wanted it, I know it was a lot less than if I hadn't used AI. But once I had the presentation really refined and where I wanted it, then I went back to Claude and I said, based on this presentation, I want you to help me to create some speaker notes, which it did. And then I brought those into Gamma, and that was my presentation. And I presented that live in Cran from Gamma. I had Gamma run the presentation for me. And it was just so much more efficient. I mean, I can tell you, I've done a lot of workshops like this and a lot of presentations, webinars, things like that. It's so much easier with AI.
That sounds like a huge time saver.
So much. Yeah, it's huge.
Absolutely.
Huge.
So we need to start wrapping things up now, Bryon. So we've covered quite a lot here, shared some really great examples for everyone. But what would be the main thing that you'd like everyone to take away from our conversation?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to what we were talking about. Start simple. Don't look at AI like this. I think a lot of people have different opinions about what AI is and what it's going to do and how it's going to affect us. I don't think those fears are unwarranted in any way. I'm sure, someday AI may be, we may all be running for our lives. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see that in our lifetime. But what I would say is that these tools are here. They're meant to be used to improve our lives, right? And so if you look at it that way, I think there's more of a glass half full mentality of how do I actually employ this? How do I get ahead of the curve? I've been to several events in the last month where people have been asked, rooms full of people, 300 people in a room, how many of you are integrating AI in your business? And maybe 20 people out of 300 raise their hand. Now, you ask them if they're using GPT or ChatGPT or some other chat. Yeah, most of the room raises their hand. But are they actually integrating and implementing AI in their business? Very, very few. I've seen that I was just at MayCon, the Marketing AI conference last week, which is, basically a lot of brands, big brand companies, enterprise companies, and then a lot of agencies, a lot of big agencies. And to see that few people say we're integrating AI, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked. Yeah. Get ahead of this stuff. Don't just wait for it to suddenly settle down, because it is not going to settle down. I'm going to tell you that right now. It hasn't settled down since ChatGPT was launched, and I don't see anything slowing this down. It's only going to get more widely used and pervasive.
It's not going away.
And if you're not figuring out how to integrate it into your business, into your life, my wife uses it for everything. She uses it to plan our meals. She uses it to plan our trips. She uses it to, figure out our social schedule and all the shows that we're going, So figure out how to use it somewhere in your life to improve your life. Right.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Some great suggestions. Was there anything else you wanted to add that we haven't already covered about AI? We've covered quite a lot.
I think so. I mean, I think we covered everything we wanted to cover today. This is a really good conversation. I know we went a bit over time here, but I think I hope people will get something out of this. And if you're what I call an AI skeptic, or or you're just AI curious, use that curiosity, use that skepticism to see if, you can find something useful to do with AI, right? Prove yourself wrong if you're a skeptic, and fulfill your dream if you're curious of, finding something that you can replace, with AI, right? Not replace, but, improve.
Bryon, thank you so much for returning to the show and being a guest, sharing your expertise. This has been really, really interesting, really helpful. Just to remind everybody, where's the best place to connect with you online?
Yeah, you can either go to our website, arcmark.co.co, so arcmark.co, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Bryon McCartney, Bryon. I like to say Bryon with a yo. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Those are the best places to reach me.